night was ink black, the moon obscured by thick, roiling clouds. I trudged through the dense forest, the damp earth sucking at my boots with each step. A shiver raced down my spine, the chill biting through my layers of clothing. My heart pounded in my chest, a primal rhythm matching the echoing thud of my footsteps. As I ventured deeper, the ancient trees closed in around me, their gnarled branches reaching out like skeletal fingers, clutching at the darkness. A sudden gust of wind whispered through the leaves, carrying with it a haunting, guttural howl that made my blood run cold. Panic tightened its grip and I quickened my pace, the urgency of escape clawing at my senses. It wasn't the first time I'd heard whispers of the Wendigo. Old-timers in the nearby town spun tales of the malevolent creature, born of desperation and starvation, condemned to roam the wilderness, driven by an insatiable hunger for human flesh. I'd scoffed at such stories, dismissing them as the idle fantasies of bored villagers seeking to entertain themselves with ghostly fables. But now, enveloped by the oppressive silence of the forest, doubts gnawed at my resolve. Suddenly a foul stench invaded my nostrils, a putrid combination of rot and decay. My breath hitched, and I froze in my tracks, straining to discern any movement in the shadows. That's when I saw it, a hulking figure, obscured by the night, but unmistakably looming, its eyes glinting with a sickly, predatory gleam. My heart raced, pounding against my ribcage like a desperate prisoner. The Wendigo, a grotesque fusion of man and beast, stood before me, its emaciated form towering over my trembling frame. Its skeletal limbs seemed to stretch impossibly long, ending in jagged, razor-sharp claws that glistened with malevolent intent. Instinct kicked in, and I turned to flee, limbs thrashing through the underbrush. The forest seemed to conspire against me, roots and brambles snaking up to trip me, branches reaching out to snatch at my clothing. My breaths came in ragged gasps, the frigid air searing my lungs. The Wendigo's chilling breath cascaded down my neck, a reminder of its relentless pursuit. Just when I thought my strength would fail me, a distant glimmer of moonlight pierced the canopy, casting a feeble lifeline through the darkness. With a final surge of adrenaline, I burst forth into the clearing, stumbling into a small, moonlit glade. The respite was short-lived. The Wendigo's monstrous form emerged from the shadows, its eyes fixed on me with a hunger that sent terror coursing through my veins. I reached for the only weapon at my disposal, a slender, weathered branch from a nearby sapling. My trembling hands gripped it tightly, a feeble defense against the abomination before me. As the Wendigo advanced, its growl reverberating in the still night, I mustered every ounce of resolve within me. With a primal scream, I lunged forward, driving the makeshift weapon towards its heart. Time seemed to slow, every heartbeat echoing in my ears. The branch found its mark, piercing the creature's flesh. The Wendigo let out an unearthly wail, its body convulsing in agony. In that moment, I seized the opportunity, scrambling back into the safety of the forest. The night air rang with the Wendigo's mournful cries, fading into the distance as I put as much distance between us as possible. It was a nightmarish encounter I would carry with me forever, a reminder that some horrors were real, lurking in the darkest corners of the world. From that night on, I would never venture into those woods again, haunted by the knowledge that sinister forces walked among us, hungry for the taste of our fear. The night was as black as pitch, the moon hidden behind thick, heavy clouds. My two friends, John and Sarah, and I trudged through the unforgiving wilderness, our flashlights barely penetrating the surrounding darkness. Our breaths misted the icy air, and the sound of our footsteps reverberated through the quiet forest. We had been drawn into these woods by the legend of the Wendigo, a creature born from desperation and hunger, a haunting tale whispered by generations of locals. We had scoffed at the idea of encountering such a creature, believing it to be mere folklore. But as the oppressive silence closed in around us, the ancient trees stretching out their gnarled branches like skeletal fingers, doubts gnawed at our resolve, like a ghostly presence that we couldn't shake. The forest seemed to conspire against us, each rustling leaf, each snapping twig, a reminder that we were trespassers in this realm of shadows and secrets. A bitter wind whispered through the trees, carrying a mournful guttural howl that sent shivers down our spines. Panic tightened its grip, urging us to turn back, but we pressed on, driven by a morbid curiosity that fueled our every step. It wasn't until the fetid stench of decay filled our nostrils that we knew we were not alone. The air grew heavy, and a gnawing dread settled in our chests. We turned our flashlights toward the source of the putrid odor, and there, amidst the trees, stood the monstrous figure of the Wendigo. Its emaciated frame towered over us, and its eyes glowed with an eerie, predatory hunger. The beast's skeletal limbs stretched unnaturally long, each finger ending in wickedly sharp claws. Our hearts raced, thudding in time with its evil gaze, and a paralyzing fear held us in its icy grip. With a guttural growl, it advanced toward us, a grotesque fusion of man and beast. Our instincts kicked in and we turned and fled, crashing through the underbrush. The forest seemed to come alive, roots and vines reaching out to trip us, branches clawing at our clothing. Our breaths came in ragged gasps, the frigid air burning our lungs. In the distance, a faint glimmer of moonlight broke through the canopy, casting a feeble lifeline through the darkness. With one final surge of adrenaline, we burst into a small moonlit clearing. The Wendigo's wails echoed behind us, and in that moment we seized our chance. John, Sarah, and I stumbled over each other, making a desperate stand against the creature. We armed ourselves with slender, weathered branches from the surrounding trees, our trembling hands clutching at the makeshift weapons. The creature came forward, its hungering eyes fixed on us, but we were ready. With a unified battle cry, we lunged forward, striking at the creature's heart. Time seemed to slow, our heartbeats echoing in our ears, as the branches found their mark, piercing the beast's flesh. The Wendigo let out a blood-curdling wail, its body convulsing in agony. We scrambled back into the safety of the forest, the echoes of the Wendigo's cries fading into the distance. It was a nightmarish encounter we would never forget, a reminder that the legends of old held a kernel of truth, and that some horrors walked among us, hungry for our fear. From that night on, we would never venture into those woods again, haunted by the knowledge that sinister forces existed in the shadows, lurking in the darkest corners of the world. The night was inky black, the moon hidden by a thick blanket of clouds, casting the forest into a realm of obsidian shadows. As I ventured deeper into the woods, my friends and I were enveloped by the oppressive stillness. The ancient trees loomed like specters, their gnarled limbs reaching out like skeletal fingers, clutching at the darkness. We had embarked on this ill-fated journey after hearing tales of the Wendigo, a creature forged by hunger and despair, a legend passed down through generations. Dismissing it as a mere local legend, we ventured deeper, fueled by youthful curiosity and bravado, unaware of the lurking terror. Every step we took seemed to draw us further into an abyss of dread. The rustling leaves and eerie creaking of branches whispered secrets we couldn't comprehend. A cold wind swept through the trees, carrying a chilling, mournful howl that sent shivers coursing through our veins. Panic gnawed at our resolve, urging us to retreat, but we pressed on, drawn deeper into the heart of the forest. The air grew thick with tension, and a foul stench of decay invaded our senses. Our flashlights revealed the grotesque form of the Wendigo, its emaciated figure looming ominously. Its eyes glowed with an unnatural hunger, and its skeletal limbs stretched impossibly long, ending in cruel, razor-sharp claws. Fear surged through us, and our hearts pounded in time with the malevolent gaze of the creature. With a guttural growl, the Wendigo advanced, a monstrous fusion of man and beast. Instinct took over, and we turned and fled, crashing through the underbrush. The forest itself seemed to conspire against us, roots and branches reaching out to trip us, as though the woods were determined to keep their sinister secret. Our breaths came in ragged gasps, the frigid air burning our lungs. In the distance, A faint glimmer of moonlight pierced the canopy, providing a fleeting respite. With one final burst of adrenaline, we burst into a small moonlit glade. The Wendigo's wails echoed behind us, but in that moment, we seized our opportunity. Grabbing slender branches from the surrounding trees, we prepared to make a stand against the creature. It advanced, its ravenous eyes locked onto us, but we were ready. With a unified battle cry, we lunged forward, striking at the creature's heart. Time seemed to slow, our heartbeats echoing in our ears as our makeshift weapons found their mark, piercing the creature's flesh. The Wendigo let out a bone-chilling scream, its body writhing in agony. We scrambled back into the safety of the forest, the echoes of the Wendigo's cries fading into the distance. It was a nightmarish encounter we would never forget, a stark reminder that ancient legends could hold terrifying truths. From that night on, we vowed to never venture into those woods again, haunted by the knowledge that sinister forces existed in the shadows, lurking in the darkest corners of the world.